Namaste everyone. Welcome to our 7th day of the 28th World Yoga Festival and the 7th International Day of Yoga celebration. I'm so happy because we finish our 7 days. 21 more days are coming. Update is on June 21st. We have a special celebration by the NGOs and the committees from the UN. Our director from the DGC and the chief from the DGC will be main guest speakers, and 8 or 9 leaders are joining. And same day we have another event that will be hosted in different page. The big group of cluster of team will be there. That is Unity Earth celebration, and Yonikali is part of it, and we will join in that too in the afternoon. We have two events on June 21st. I know all night will have other events from India and abroad. So that is sleepless day for me. So here I'm going to invite our keynote speaker today. That is Reverend Dr. Johnny Carley. He's an interfaith minister and an author and long-time NGO representative at the UN. Currently, he's representing for Cosmos Associates Journal at the United Nations. He served in different committees for religious groups, spiritual groups, and so on and on. Very loving person. I want to invite my close friend, Reverend Dr. Johnny Carley. Floor is for you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask people to please mute if you're not speaking. We're getting some background noise. Thank you. I am so happy.
1 minute, Johnny. Can you unmute? When I click it, it unmute you too. Okay.
There we go. I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you so much, Guruji, for inviting me. Today, I wanted to talk about mojo, consciousness, and causality. So when I say mojo, what comes up for you? What do you think that means? Just type it in the chat, what you think mojo means. To me, it means that kind of zip, that kind of pizzazz, that kind of zing, that kind of metaphysical spark, or that life force, that energy that makes life live. Tagore, the wonderful Hindu mystic, he called it the life throb of ages dancing through our blood. Don't you love that? The life throb of ages dancing through our blood. That's really that, we can never really describe it. It's, I see mojo as a smiley face. Yes, it's what brings our joy forward. And even when we're not happy, it brings our presence to what we're passionate about. We can put all the elements of a carrot into a lab dish, but we can't make a carrot. And that's because we're not very adept with that primal, that intangible energy that makes life live. And that energetic spark has everything to do with what causes what. So I want to get into causality in a minute, but first I really want to unpack this idea of mojo, because so many cultures, so many religions come at it with their own words. And I'm just using that one because it's kind of generic and it doesn't bring the charge that sometimes religious words bring. But you could think of it as chi or ki, as some of the Eastern religions refer to it, as spirit, as that energy of the creator. I stayed with a tribe of headhunters in the jungle in the Amazon quite a while ago, and they called it arutum. Arutum, right? You can feel the energy in it. I love the Hindu word Shakti, because that's a universal life force. And that's what we're talking about. And Sanskrit is so powerful because it's a vibrational language. So when we chant Shakti, that connects us with that spark of the ages that's dancing through our blood. And I just want to do that for a minute. I just want to feel into that. And I invite you to chant Shakti with me. Please sit straight. Take a breath. And I'm going to chant Shakti 10 times. I ask you to join me at your own pace, in your own way, and bring lots of mojo to it. Shakti, 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 Shakti. Om, Shakti, Om. Just take a breath and tune into the Shakti that's dancing through you right now. What do you feel? Go ahead and raise hands and we can have a little dialogue about this. What do you feel when you invigorate that in you? Anyone? We have a quiet crowd today. Hopefully you have a sense of that mojo, that life force running through you. And you know, the truth is that forever, scientists and mystics and philosophers have been trying to nail down what exactly is this. Any word we give it is never going to fully describe it. That's just the nature of the mystical world. But we absolutely can harness that metaphysical power that Shakti calls us present to. A big problem, though, is that a lot of us have been acculturated to what I like to call the fluffy myth. I write a lot about it in my book, The Alchemy of Power, Mastering the Invisible Factors of Leadership, because the fluffy myth is really derailing a lot else. And the fluffy myth is the story that we can, that what we see is all that matters, that everything else is just inconsequential fluffy stuff that I'll chant later, because that's not what really matters. What really matters is that I, get this or that done, or I do something that shows up in the physical world. That even when we're deeply involved in spirituality and we know that it is very consequential, very important, we tend to still fall into our acculturations about the fluffy myth and let those kinds of things come secondary. But there's no evidence that backs up the fluffy myth. And we have a lot of data that actually says the opposite, that the intangible elements, the energy in any given situation has everything to do with what happens in that situation. The fluffy myth and the idea that problems and solutions come out of nowhere, they go together. Because there's really no such thing as nowhere. To believe that nowhere is accountable for your situation is to award power to a fantasy place. I don't know what happened, it just came out of nowhere. No, it came out of the metaphysical realm, it came out of consciousness. So believing in nowhere leaves people nowhere to go to fix things. And that becomes very problematic. People are actually give up some of that Shakti, they give up some of that mojo, some of that internal metaphysical power by believing in ideas that it's nowhere, that it's fluffy, that it's something else other than reality. And it really is about getting into the domain of metaphysics. Metaphysics is the science and the philosophy of causality, and it's the search for basically what causes what. Metaphysics is the field from which physics emerged. So we tend to think of physics as primary, but metaphysics is primary to physics. We've been exploring this through all of history, and despite all the wisdom that's been revealed about it, the realm of causality is still probably mostly mystery. I've traveled the world learning about mojo from religious leaders, spiritual teachers, indigenous elders, human potential movement teachers, just about everybody I could find, because the subject really, really intrigues me. And one of the places I learned the most was in the Amazon jungle with the Shuar tribe that I mentioned. The Shuar are known for their fierce warriors. They're known for their headhunting, which they say is never or rarely done anymore, depending on who you ask. And there's kind of an immediacy when you're in the jungle. We were climbing 15-foot muddy cliffs and making whitewater crossings by going hand over hand on a rope stretched across the Amazon. And to do that kind of stuff, you've got to be 100% present. You've got to be 100% present when just going to the bathroom can involve scorpions. And when you're on these really harrowing pathways and you grab the wrong branch to keep from falling down the muddy slope and there's fire ants coming down your arm, that kind of immediacy, that kind of presence is a factor of mojo. And the jungle offers a primal experience of that life throb of ages that's dancing through our blood that Tagore wrote about. And so while I was there, I really had an experience of that primal pulse of God. That's mojo, that primal pulse of God. The only place we can really access this is thinking of it as an aspect of our consciousness. Consciousness is undoubtedly a real thing. Krishna said, water cannot wet it, wind cannot dry it, weapons cannot shatter it, fire cannot burn it. It's ancient, it's unborn, it's not subject to death. And yet we still don't know what it is or always how to even get in touch with it. Consciousness is a very subtle body of information. It's a subtle body of energy, and we sense it from the inside. But even though we sense it on the inside, it's not localized in our physical bodies. We can't see it, but without consciousness, there's no seeing. And we kind of assume that consciousness is in our minds, but that's not true. It's an intelligence that lies way beyond our thought processes. Without consciousness, we wouldn't have imagination, we wouldn't have creativity, insight, intuition. We wouldn't even have choice without consciousness. We experience consciousness as an inner domain of reality, but consciousness is determinant of every outer reality that we encounter. Consciousness is the primal generator as well as the ultimate interpreter of our reality. And that way you could kind of say that it's both the alpha and the omega. Consciousness is where we know peacefulness, and it's the domain where we sense our own contentment. It's reflected in our language, but our language can never really fully express consciousness. But one thing we can do that's very practical is being impeccable with your word. Being impeccable with your word develops consciousness, and the opposite is also true. The more developed your consciousness is, the more impeccable your word will be. So consciousness occurs in the metaphysical domain. The metaphysics is the science of causality. It's the science of what's going on with intangibles in our lives. It generates or determines what our experiences are, and it generates how we're impacted by our experiences. Matter is derived from consciousness because consciousness always comes first. And that's what I want to really impart here today, is that consciousness is root causal, it's fundamental. And so even when we look at the biggest social problems in the world, first and foremost, they are a crisis of consciousness. You could say that consciousness is an engine of causality. It's a catalyst for everything everywhere. And when mojo or shakti is strong, then the catalyst is strong. The bottom line is that as our consciousness goes, so goes our world. Consciousness is the primary determining factor of the human experience, and it literally determines how we live and how we evolve. And it's cultivated by putting our attention on it and attending to what comes up when we do put our attention on consciousness. And friends, these times really call on us to raise our consciousness. These times demand that we give time and attention and priority to our spiritual lives and to the spiritual life of who we are as a species. This is the time, if ever there was one, to connect to the metaphysical life pulse that makes life live. When 95% of our reality, it can't be accessed by our physical senses, according to physicists. And when we don't attend to our spiritual lives, we get stuck believing that 5% of our reality that's physical is the extent of our lives, and that makes us miserable. And our consciousness may or may not give us access to the 95% mystery that we live in. But we do know that spiritual practice gives us individual and collective access to the mostly mysterious parts of our lives. And the mostly mysterious parts are our most powerful parts of our lives. Because consciousness is causal And because the world has a critical need for transformation right now, we can no longer afford to be unconscious of our consciousness. So one really easy way to prioritize consciousness is to just ask, how's my mojo? How's the mojo in this situation? Just take a moment to tap into that question in any situation. It'll give you an answer of where to go with it. Our consciousness determines our spiritual paths, and vice versa. Our spiritual paths have a profound impact on our consciousness. It's where our spiritual lives are where we exercise that universal human yearning to eternally reach for something more. That's the human spirit, right? It's always wanting more. It's always wanting to expand. And the more we expand ourselves through our spiritual practice, the more we see that our expansion is infinite. And the more we know from our spiritual practice, the more we realize how much we don't know. It puts us in touch with how our consciousness is expanding and unfolding in the limitless field of all possibility at all times. Spiritual practice kind of tunes up our consciousness, and it makes it fit for that expansion that we long for. And that's true whether we're expanding inwardly or expanding outwardly. I see my screen freezing. Okay. And so because we're reaching, when we reach higher levels of consciousness, we actually kind of lose sight of what's inward and what's outward anyway. When we reach these higher levels, the idea of higher, deeper, shallower, they all collapse. God, not God, all that just collapses. And we begin to sense the I am consciousness that mystics have always told us about. I am, with no predicate, no separation, no something else, just I am. Chant that with me 3 times, please. I am, I am, I am. Consciousness is so cultivated by chanting, by meditation, by prayer, by taking time to open ourselves to that never-ending river of spirit, that never-ending flow of mojo. It happens, we juice up that mojo by staying curious about the divine mystery that runs in, of, and through our lives. We really juice up the mojo, the Shakti in our lives by choosing love, no matter what, no matter what, no matter when, no matter who, no matter why, choose love. And that's a Shakti mojo raiser. Also immersing ourselves in creativity and inspiration and yoga and other types of body prayer, taking walks in nature and deep dives into the mysteries of spirit, those all raise our mojo. So again, if you want to know, are you raising it on your, are you on track? Are you in your spiritual vortex? Ask yourself, how's my mojo? Am I priming that pulse of universal life force that's unique in me and common to everyone? And that's a really important understanding, is that sense of interdependency, because mojo rises when we realize that we are part of a greater whole. That realization is in itself a higher level of consciousness. The Vedas say that consciousness is a process of evolution that's driven by a collective urge to evolve into a higher understanding of the nature of the universe. But we don't just seek understanding. It's human nature to be forever reaching for our proverbial heaven on earth, to be expanding our experience into greater well-being, into greater peace, greater joy. We have an innate sense that a verdant and peaceful world is our natural destiny. And in this unique moment in history, we seem to be in an acceleration of our forever reaching for that loving and joyful world where everybody gets to live fully, where every kid gets to go to bed safe, fed, and warm, and where everybody shares the common right to internal and external peace. That's heaven on earth. And consciousness is where our imaginations can transcend the reasonableness of our minds that say, oh, we can't have an earth like that because reality is this, this, and this, and this. We use our consciousness to transcend that kind of consciousness so that we can dream ourselves forward into a just and into a compassionate world. Consciousness is where we imagine how we're going to manifest a global order that aligns with our highest aspirations, with the greatest goodness of who we can be. Our consciousness is the place of our resolve for making the world we long to actually live in. Many people, myself included, believe that we're living in the birth of a new paradigm, a new way of being, a new normal. And that by definition means a new ground of communal consciousness. We are groundbreaking, moving into the frontier of the field that Rumi described as the field beyond right doing and wrongdoing, the field of universal consciousness. And as we stand here on the edge of this new era and all playing our parts by just developing our own internal consciousness and by tuning into that holistic consciousness that is all things and all beings and the God force in our lives. I want to just end with a prayer of gratitude. I give thanks for the evolutionary awakening of our consciousness that is happening as the world finds its way forward in this unique moment in history. I give thanks that we are right here, right now, expanding our consciousness together on this call. I give thanks for the rising collective consciousness that's driving our evolution forward toward being all that we can be as a species. And I give thanks for all the mojo or shakti or chi or arutam that's flowing through each of us right here, right now, and that flows through all of humanity in all time. May we open our hearts, may we open our minds and our souls to greater expansion of our own consciousness. And may our mojo rise and align together in conscious evolution toward a world that works for everyone. Blessed be. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Johnny. Kali, that was a beautiful presentation. I know so for a lot of people, this is a new idea because they stuck with a certain culture or a religious practice or a spiritual practice. So, could you explain your spiritual journey in a short form? People like to hear a personal journey.
Well, it's a path of many paths. First of all, I want to acknowledge Kirpal Singh's mojo is equipoise, Sahaj, and Sikhism. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to work with that. Is there anything that you wanted to say about that? Okay. So my own journey. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So now equipoise, simply we use in Punjabi the word moj. Moj means some people call it masti, some people call it, just go with the flow. Some people say hukam, some people say some other way, but more popularly it's called Sahaj in Sikhism, that you accept it as it comes and vibrate along with it, like as if you are in a, what's that Mexican thing they use, swing in it?
Piñata.
Yeah, like that, you just go with the life like that and enjoy it as it comes, and that's moj, that's mojo.
Interesting. I take that idea to a different place in my book where I talk about alchemy, and where it's recognizing this powerful flow, but also consciously using it. So, this is my book, The Alchemy of Power. It's on Amazon, and it really looks at, this is so real and it's so usable if we're only conscious with it. So I'll get back to your question, Guruji. My own path, my parents were not super religious. I was raised Catholic, but kind of mildly so. And just was always a seeker, and started learning meditation early in college, and really got very much into Eastern religions, and spent a lot of time in Japan, Thailand, and had the blessing of many indigenous teachers, especially throughout the United States. And learning that primacy, that primal understanding of mojo from indigenous was really invaluable to me, because they have an understanding of that is, as much as I studied it and believe in it, it still is second nature to me and not first nature yet. Of really understanding, as you say, Dr. Singh, that it's just always there. So how do I make myself the best tuned up vehicle to take that ride to its most fruitful place? And so that question has driven me, and I've gone to universities, and I've learned from scientists, and just really try and learn from people really, not even particularly spiritual. And reading a lot. I especially enjoy Hafiz, the mystics from the different religions are kind of where I find the essence comes through.
Because I asked that question. I know we have so many religious, spiritual people in our UN community, but you are totally different from them. So I asked that question. And I know
I'm also an interspiritual minister. I ordained as an interfaith minister. And interfaith actually became too tight of a title for me. So even though that's my official title, it still means one religion, another religion, another religion, another religion talk to each other. And I'll tell you, I'm in a lot of circles where people think that means the Protestants, the Catholics, and the Methodists. That's all Christian religions. So that's, it gets a very limited understanding. But I love the word interspiritual, because that gets at the essence of what all religions come to. And I've gone to many different churches and synagogues, and I've always had this deep, deep, deep feeling, do not join. And it was very uncomfortable, especially with children. And, going to one church, there was a lot of pressure to join, become the community, which my kids were a big part of. But my intuition was, no, I am not of one. And so it's been a blessing and challenging, and, as all good things are, to hold to that path. And now I really see the place, because I can broker some conversations at the UN, and I can hold that space, and I can, at the UN, one of the big things that I'm pushing for right now is when we're at these tables and there are all these different religions sitting around the table, they're usually there either as social service providers or as social service receivers. Especially the indigenous are more there as receivers, and most of the organized religions are there as providers. And service is important in religion, but it's not the primary work of religion. And so that's what I'm trying to bring, and say, bring the essence of the teachings. Religions have been working for many centuries on developing what is the greatest good of humanity and how do we achieve it. That's their primary work. And so how do we be our best people? That's the intelligence that must be brought forward right now, or we will never get the peaceful world we need. And we are so on the precipice of not having any world at all if we continue down these crazy roads we've been on, that we must tap in, we must mine this. And so I feel that this interspiritual space at the UN, and now that I represent Unity Earth as well there, the organizations that I represent are more open-minded, and so I have license to speak. When I represented United Religions Initiative, which is a fabulous organization, it was a great honor to represent, but I had to be more careful with my words, because I did represent so many organized religions, and I needed to do that, with consciousness and with respect for that. And now I still respect all of that, but I have the ability to speak more freely and to open up this space. And I find people are relieved by it, Guruji, more than, of course, there's some pushback, but not a lot, at least not to my face. I don't know how much is going on behind my back, but people are relieved to have these distinctions, because again, sometimes they don't have the freedom to bring them themselves.
Here, Professor Gopinathan Pillai is here. I'll ask him to make a question or a comment.
No, thank you, because nothing to say more, but however, may I make some observations? Thank you, this Joni Khalid, for your enriching presentation. But we find that there are hundreds or thousands of spiritual seekers across the world who pursue different paths in search of the highest or the supreme light. And you talked of consciousness well, but we know that this this human consciousness found its perfection in the Atmajnana tradition of India, especially as exemplified by Vedas and Upanishads. We find that. So Vedas and Upanishads, because they represent the wisdom tradition, the knowledge, pure wisdom, knowledge, jnana. Jnana cannot be translated in English in its proper way, but jnana, Atmajnana in English we can say wisdom or knowledge. So they have laid down the procedures, the paths, the way of life one should pursue in one's life to attain this highest perfection. There is nothing more is to be, because beyond that, no spiritual path has ever evolved beyond the path laid down by the great Atmajnani rishis of the yore. But then we find that despite having all this wisdom, we find that in the preceding ages, we find hundreds of gurus, acharyas, prophets, everybody came. And lesser acharyas or prophets or great people we find across the world. But the irony is that still we are unable to raise human consciousness to an iota, and a 0.1% level. As Aurobindo says, because Aurobindo, the Rishi Aurobindo was a great saint here, he says that, we often notes that human consciousness is the lowest bottom, lowest level, and in the grip of dark forces. At the lowest level, the present human consciousness is situated. Despite all our endeavor, it is the situation that we witness across the world. How can we? Because experience, only as you suggested, experience is the only way through which we can raise human consciousness, spiritual practices, all our needs. But a proper, a framework, a proper guidance, a proper facilitating framework humanity doesn't have. It is the most grave crisis that humanity faces today. But thank you for your presentation, because you have at least evinced that much interest. Not only that, your effort is also on the line of facilitating the enhancement of human consciousness. To that level, you deserve our applause and congratulations. Thank you,
Thank you. I do feel like the work right now is nothing but work on consciousness, that has to be our primary focus right now, because we can't get there by one more law, we can't get there by one more rule, we can't get there by one more meeting. It can only get there by consciousness raising.
And thank you. Then I like to invite Dr. Vinamra Sharma from the Amity University. Amity University is #1 private university in India. Vinamra, you can ask any question or a comment.
My sincere regard
Speak
to
loud, yeah.
my sincere regard to ma'am, means, and I really I'm thankful that ma'am is addressed that means the level of higher consciousness, how she addressed about that I am. Really, this is the search of that who I am. Is that really a true means self-realization? Is that main gist of the yoga? So who I am, have to search it. So really, it's a good lecture, and I'm really thankful for ma'am. And thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a lot of what you said. Could someone, the mic was breaking up a little bit.
Can you repeat, Vinamra?
What, sir? What happened, sir?
She cannot, she didn't hear well because of the mic system. Can
now it's proper, sir. I'm audible.
Mm.
Ma'am, I'm really
Speaking about
thankful
the
for you. Yeah, I'm really thankful for you that you have addressed about that I am. So I can say that the yoga is just means thirst for who I am.
Correct.
So, yeah.
And so much of the spiritual work these
You
days
addressed
is
very well,
very
really fulfilled.
narcissistic. Sorry?
Yes, ma'am, please, ma'am.
So much
Thank
of the work, I am this, I am spiritual. There's a kind of a spiritual materialism that people have. I want to be spiritual. I want to grab that, and we tend to predicate the I am a this, I am a that, and that's no longer in the space. The primal I am. That's the work, is to come to that.
Like
To recognize that it's not personal. The I am is when we really get there, we realize it has nothing to do with me.
so like some people will search for their glasses. They are wearing the glasses, but they don't remember it is on the face, but they search
Right.
for it.
It's like the Buddha's teaching that it's not something to attain, it's not something to get to. It's something that, as you say, the flow, it's just something to tune into, to allow that flow of mojo. It isn't ever anywhere else. It's only ours to open to something. Some of us think of it like a vortex, Are we in that vortex? Are we there in receiving mode? And that's what yoga does, is it primes us. It primes the vortex.
Yes.
So any other questions from the students from Amity University?
My book, I'm sorry, I don't mean to plug
Yeah.
it, is a good university text because every chapter ends with questions, and there are many, many, many pages of references. There are a lot of studies. It's a scholarly work, but also practical.
Yeah. Reverend Johnny, if you can, you already put the link on the chat box. That's good.
It's got 3 sections. The first one really just breaks down the metaphysics, and I use the terms yin and yang because they don't bring, even though they are connected to Eastern religions, particularly Shintoism, they don't pack a lot of cultural baggage the way that other terms do, and they help us see the duality of the world, the yin and the yang. And I make the point that we've had yangitis. We've believed in the physical and the material and the numbers and the data, and we've dismissed all the yin as fluffy stuff. That's what I get into, the fluffy myth. And then the second section of the book is applying that to what's on a leader's desk right now. And how do you bring these metaphysical distinctions into just getting the work done and getting through the day and making a difference in the world. And that's the alchemy, is applying the metaphysics. And the third part applies it to where we're going as a world. And it makes the point that if leaders don't tune into this, don't understand that this is the time of consciousness raising and that they need to do their own work here and pay attention here, that they're going to find themselves blindsided by their own irrelevance, because the world is moving on. The world is growing into this. And so, when I first started at the UN, you had to whisper consciousness only to a few certain select people you could trust, or you could really lose your footing. That's just not true anymore. And that's so in the whole world, that there's an opening for these conversations, and there's a need, however conscious people are about how desperate the need is for this, there's a resonance. People may not really understand it, but they still resonate that we have evolved as a species enough that this vibrational level, we now understand it is, that more refined vibrations that we can't see or touch or taste, but that's where the action is. That's where the power is. That's where the opportunity for alchemy is. And alchemy was understood as turning lead into gold, but that's a very, very limited understanding of alchemy. Alchemy is making more than the sum of parts. So if you have 2 leaders who have the same quality of employees, have the same raw materials, working at the same price and pretty much the same conditions, one produces junk, and the team is falling apart and there's no profit. The other produces innovation that changes the world and makes a great profit, and the team is stronger and happier at the end of the road. Well, what's the difference? The difference is alchemy. All the material things are the same. It's how the metaphysical things are played out. And then the alchemy is being conscious with the metaphysics. We all do metaphysical things all day, every day. It's just the nature of human condition. The question is, how conscious are we of those metaphysics, and how consciously can we employ that steady flow of what is the word of sahaj, that steady flow, how do we consciously flow it through us? And how do we become the hands, the feet, the heart, the mouth, the soul of that in our expression in the world? And that's what evolves the world, is our desires, our wishes, our wants to take that energy, that power out into the world.
So, Reverend Johnny Carly, we have over 300 people are watching this program. And what is your final message for the global community?
Pay attention to your mojo. Pay attention to everybody else's mojo. Pay attention to the mojo in the moment. Ask yourself, how's my mojo? And if it's a little funky, take a walk. Remove yourself, even if it means going to the bathroom. Really, step out until you can reconnect with the sahaj, the arutam, the mojo, the chi. Pay attention to it, value it. That's what's changing. That's another whole talk. But economically, we're finally learning to value what's most valuable to people. And that is feeling powerful, feeling good. And the way to do that is just get in touch with it. And if your mojos, if you can't answer that question with great, I feel the flow, then sit down, tune in, turn on, meditate.
Thank you, Reverend Johnny Carly. That was an inspirational time with you. I know always you bring new ideas.
Thank you.
I always enjoy that part, and always you are supporting us. I'm so thankful to you. Appreciate. So,
And much gratitude for your work, Guruji. You really make a difference.
could you announce the program with the Unity Earth?
Yes, worldunityweek.org, worldunityweek.com. Honestly, I should know that. It's either .com or .org. I think it's .com. Maybe Guruji, you could find that out.
Okay.
It's a week of amazing programs. Imagine if you went to a convention center like the Javits Center that took up in New York City, that took up several city blocks. That's what we're doing virtually online. And if you were in a big convention center, you might go in this area and talk about that. You might go in that area and do this. Well, World Unity Week has an area for dancing and music and for connecting with people and for looking at how to make better cities, looking at how to, there's a big spiritual area where there are many religion and spiritual people offering things. And the area that I'm stewarding is called the One World Town Hall. And we're looking at how policy can reflect human rights and the human spirit. So we're looking at bringing consciousness into policy development. We'll have many meetings in the One World Town Hall. And if you just, once you go to worldunityweek.com or .org, you can register. And once you register, you'll get lots of information over the next few weeks. And then we're running in US East Coast time, but that's not to say that there will be things happening at other times. So it's an amazing week shaping up. Last year, with about 6 weeks notice, we had 700,000 people view, and we expect to be much bigger this year. And we have much more programming. We invite you all to come and play with us. It's going to be an exciting, exciting week.
So yesterday Ben Bowler called me, then he put 4 to 5:30 on 21st. That's for the International Day of Yoga celebration. So we are having a meeting today and we'll finalize all the stuff. So thank you again, Reverend Johnny Carly. Thank you for your great blessing for us. I'll be in touch very soon. Now I'd like to invite one of our friends from Kerala, our guest speaker, Sri Janardhan Menon, General Manager at the Shantigiri Research Foundation in Kerala, India. He's one of the founding disciple of Sri Karnagaru Guru. Karnagaru Guru also from the Narayana Guru tradition, and he has spent his time with other masters and he developed his own system, one of the popular ashram in India. They are one of our co-partner in this event. Sri Janardhan Menonji, floor is for you. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you can
Okay.
move forward.
At the outset, sir, made me my first and foremost duty to express my gratitude at being allowed to sprinkle some seeds of stray ideas and random thoughts in the ensemble of eminent scholars of various disciplines kind of connected to yoga and yoga itself. I happened here some of the apprehensions voiced by the erudite scholars like Sri T.P. Sasikumar and Sebastian Vallasiri sir yesterday. I'm here to record here that their fears they are not entirely unfounded yet. There are places where there is a confluence of thoughts. First thing, I deliberately spoke to Swami to speak on Paravidya and Aparavidya. To make things, long thing short, I will simply say Paravidya is spiritual and Aparavidya is very materialistic. As long as yoga is concerned, I would say the materialistic thing, that is what was apprehended by Sebastian Vallasiri sir and TPS. Those things are, to an extent, are right. But other things, the certain things, some physical, some kind of a therapeutic, and other things, there is not much of a problem. But the problem comes when you make it a spiritual thing. I will quote, or rather I will take three people for example. Those who have attained this in India, but they are universal people. One is Dr. Gopi has said about it, Dr. Sri Aurobindo, and another is well-known person, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and his disciple, Swami Vivekananda. Their experiences in yoga, that I will take it up. God forbid, may nobody think that I am criticizing those people. The thing is that I am in this floor. You have given me the floor, sir, kindly. This floor is for extricating the truth. Not to, we say a debate and a discussion should enlighten people, but not to bring about the heat in it. The heat has to be removed, and the light has to be welcome. I beg that I may be taken in that way. I'll take up the case of Sri Aurobindo first. Sri Aurobindo was a fiery freedom fighter accused in the Baroda bomb case, a person who was who got his education from the age of 2 in England and France. After coming back to India, he became a revolutionist. But at the same time, that wasn't when he was in a material thing. But at the same time, when he took up the yoga, and he was taught by a person called Lele. This man, to make a long story short, he was bitten by a rabid dog and did not go for any medicine and got himself, his blood got stuck because of his yogic power. He tied a knot around it and kept it there. And at last, when the massacre of Jallianwala Bagh took place, this man became very angry, and his anger has removed the knot. And at last he met his end because of that. Now you may understand what is a thing, the spiritual quantity of the yoga. The spiritual things which are being bragged about, as we have seen yesterday, these things which are being bragged about by the people should realize that such a thing has got so many dangers incorporated in it. We cannot go around and keep on selling it and marketing it like others do. That cannot be done. This fairy patriot of an Arabindo got metamorphosized after getting this yogic teaching, and he became a universal man. In the Second World War, when the whole country and the Mahatma Gandhi including went against the Allied forces, asked for freedom, this person wanted the destruction of Asuric forces or the Axis forces. Because patriotism, etc., had no meaning for him as long as it is against the will and wishes of the God. That thing, and it is said, he said to the people, and they have written down that he did a sangalpam, because when he gets the lot of power, the madman was telling, when you accrue a lot of power, that power comes with the responsibility. The responsibility, if it is not there, that power cannot be entrusted to you. With that responsibility came this person. He had the sangalpam, we call it in Sanskrit. In the sangalpam is the thing also said in Tamil Tiruvalluvar also say, that is, what you desire will become the reality if you become strong enough in soul. So the strength of the soul made him to do a sangalpam, which sangalpam changed the course of wars. He did a sangalpam twice, that is at the Battle of Dunkirk, and again when Netaji came to the border of Assam, and he was about to come, but the sangalpam of a jnani, you know what happened? The rains came 4 months before, upsetting all the apple cart of Japanese and others, and they had to go back. That person who was an Indian became a universal man, following the universal God. For him, India and these things are no single the matter. You are sitting here, when you are, you have got lot of priests, lot of people who said and went to the altar of death with the word in their mouth, I am the God's, I am the His Majesty's good servant, but I am God's first servant. That was the thing. They may go against anybody. The other thing we are talking about was Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He had been really, as you all know, he has been worshipping Kali, and one great person came all over the way to see him and give him the knowledge of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the extreme end of yoga. The Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when he wanted to do, in his own words, he says, whenever I sat down for Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the mother comes in front of me. What could I do? Then he said, with a firm conviction, with the sword of my sangalpam, I cut her into 3 pieces, and then only I got it. He got it within 3 days. And later, the other thing was that an Apara Vidya specialist, one Akori woman came, she taught him the siddhis, and he acquired 64 siddhis. But we should understand, a person who gets it cannot keep it for himself. He has to download it anywhere to the right person in right time for him to do the right task. That thing he wanted to do, he gave it to Swami Vivekananda. He asked him, can you take it up? I got it with a lot of, I'm not explaining about the troubles he undertook. He just said, I struggled so much. Can you take it? Vivekananda asked him, will it give me mukti? He said, no. Then he said, I don't want it. Well, why can't you do that? I have to give it to somebody. He said, no, you asked me to stay away from Maya, and all of a sudden you are giving me 64 Mayas. Why should I take it? Then he gave it to, he told us, he asked the other disciples. They all said, if Narendran could not do that, how can we take up that responsibility? But we must realize that Vivekananda at last realized that he has to learn things and then forget it. It is said in Raja Yoga itself, in his Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he said, you should attain Anima, Mahima, Garima, etc. All siddhis you should attain and then leave them aside. You should give them back. You should never use it. Then, this saying, all this, at last, there was no right person to teach him. When you deny the right individual who wanted to be your teacher, you don't get the teacher when you come. That's why I said, God forbid, let none misunderstand me that I am talking to Swami Vivekananda. I know his greatness. I can't hold a candle to him. But the truth, my friends, is the truth. This I am quoting to you in front of you because there are people who are telling that they will go do this and they will do that, and then with the yoga you can do that. You can do that, but that must be the right person who knows the caliber of your soul, the caliber of your jiva, whether that jiva can withstand the onslaught of all these things. And only after knowing that he should give you. That kind of a teachers you don't get normally. You can't go to the Public Service Commission or the universities and get such people. So, and at last, as you all know, because I am a child in front of you with regard to yoga, etc. In Patanjali Yoga, at last it is said, you get, after quitting away everything, after throwing away every power you have accumulated, you have to go, you get a white prakasham that is called a pratibha. That pratibha is a thing which is supposed to guide you and give you all those things. And let us again go back to Aurobindo. He said about it, he taught people, after learning things from them, he taught people, and people were always in consonance, communication with him. And he said that his soul, he finds, is going up like that of a yogi. And all of a sudden, he develops thoughts which are not even fit for a grihasthasrami or a householder. Then all of a sudden he thinks, my God, what happened to me? Me, a yogi, has gone so low, and then the soul comes up again. Then he says, my travel, my sojourn up and down is going on, and a day will come when I will always be up and never come down. That doesn't mean that I want to attain that stage now. Why? Because if I attain that stage now, if a poor person comes to me for correction without having undergone these experiences, I will never be able to correct him. That was a kind of teachers we must have. This kind of a teachers, that is what I told yesterday. This kind of a thing without yoga, etc. Certain things are, because action requires reaction. The reaction should be the right thing. The reaction of we individuals, that should be in accordance with the reaction expected out of me by God. So, the person who is a Brahmaveda Bhavati, they say, a person who knows Brahman becomes the Brahman itself. And that person, if he guides you, if he teaches you, if he says that your reaction to that action was not right, it should have been this way, and you take it and you don't repeat the same mistake, then only you grow up. And that is probably the way we have to go. He said, the supramental light is there. A man sits in yoga, practices yoga. What happens? He says the jiva travels to the supramental in search of a supramental light. And when it merges there somewhere, you get darshan. That is the thing. What great people like Prophet and Christ have got it. And he said some wrong things come because there are evil forces around the supramental force. Instead of going to the supramental force, if they go to those things, they get a wrong directions and wrong actions will follow, wrong predictions and wrong proclamations will come. And that has to be avoided. For that, a guru like Aravinda was acting there for his followers, a guru of that kind is necessary. And I would request that the people who pursue yoga for the sake of spiritual enhancement, they will do very well to find out whether they are able to get these messages from the right source, right place, and at right time. And with that, I think I should end it here with the hope that I have not offended anybody. I have not spoken ill of anyone, but the truth I had to speak. Thank you.
I saw a hand from Bikram Singh. He like to ask something. Bikram, you can ask.
Respected sir, Vikram here from India.
Yes, sir. I am from
Yeah.
Trivandrum. Myself, I am sitting here now in Trivandrum. In
Okay,
Shantigiri
okay.
Ashram, I am.
Nice, Janadarji. Can I ask the question, sir?
Well, you're welcome, sir. I'm waiting for
Yes,
you.
sir.
The floor is yours.
Okay, sir. Sir, most of the time when we see so many years from the time the Patanjali has wrote the Patanjali Yoga Sutra in a right compilation manner, there are a lot of people who have been understanding practically, internally, what the content has to be clear to the people. But have you seen that so many people are reading Patanjali Yoga Sutra, still they are not getting enlightened?
That is true, sir. There are certain things that ifs and buts are there. There are certain things which are not, which have been told, that you should, it will be easy for you to understand. But there are certain things which are not told. That also you'll have to find out. That could be found out only by a person who has crossed this, who has elevated himself beyond the stage of what Patanjali talked about. For example, if he's talking about Animar, Mahimar, Garima, and the person who has gone across, transcended that stage, that person only will be able to answer. That is why I said, when we choose people, when we choose our instructors, the gurus, we have to be very careful. We have to understand that they are the people. Why talk all that? You have talked about Patanjali Yoga Sutra just to go through the introduction given by Swami Vivekananda. What he says, whatever I know of, I will explain. What I do not know of, I will only give the meaning. See the humility of that great person. And as such, if that is the case of Swami Vivekananda, just think of others. What are they? You're talking about many people are not getting it. Swami Vivekananda says he himself is not getting it.
True, sir. That's the reason because what, yeah, that's the reason because, yeah, carry on. Can I carry on? Yeah, that's the reason I asked. Yeah, that's the reason I asked this question to you, because what happened, have you seen the education system has been explaining the Patanjali Yoga Sutra to everybody that this is the benchmark to the people for the standardization of the education in the field of yoga. If we are containing this kind of thing in the field of yoga as a standardization, then the enlightenment should be in the higher level.
Quite true.
The more of the people.
Please go on, please go on.
Yeah, that's the reason. Yeah. And when we are reading about Samadhi Pada, we are reading Vibhuti Pada, then we are going Kevala Pada, and these are all the levels we are reading up. If each sutra is not going practically, then the enlightenment is not going in a right alignment manner.
Here
now we are now both of us are talking the same way, the same language. That is precisely what I was trying to tell you. That when things are, this is not easy to get people of that kind, that caliber, and when you don't get it, you may, like Vivekananda said, you may say, this is what it means, and I don't know by experience what it is. At least that kind of intellectual honesty I expect from the teachers.
There's a story about Vivekananda. When he came to Kerala, he said, Kerala is a land of mad people. Then he, when
Lunatic asylum.
when he went to meet Chattambi Swamigal, and Swami just asked him, are you here for that mental treatment? If somebody is saying everybody is mentally troubled people, means that person have a problem. There's a ego is always there, and that's also a process for a person to develop. So we cannot say we have to get rid of ego. That's not a simple, long way to go. So they go through the experience. We also go through the experience. So I like to thank Janardhan Menon ji for your inspiring presentation. We have other days coming up. I know you will be part of it. I'm going to invite a next speaker. After all the speakers, we'll have more questions. Okay. The next guest speaker is Dr. Andrew Viti, Public Relations Coordinator at Amityville Meditation Center of the Science of Spirituality. My longtime friend, is very humble and simple person. And our popular brother in New York, Dr. Andrew, floor is for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Guruji, Guru Dileepji. It's a great joy to be here with everybody today. And of course, I have been listening to the very enlightening conversation about the Yoga Sutras. And it's a wonderful place to begin a conversation. But let me just also thank Guruji for inviting me. Let me thank all the participants for being and joining us here today, wherever you may be in the world. This is an affirmation that even during the times of COVID, we can come together and have enlightening, uplifting, and even inspiring conversations to help us pass through these difficult and very challenging times. So I want to honor each and every one of you personally for the struggles and the challenges that you are overcoming yourself in your own life, and hopefully being an inspiration to so many other people. So yoga is a great medicine for the 21st century if we understand its true meaning. And I think this is part of the conversation that I'd like to continue. We know that the root word for yoga is yug, which means to bind or to unite. So yoga is really all about union. It is about union with the divine, with the primal divine Jyoti and Shruti, the Udgit in the Upanishads, the Nod that is vibrating throughout all creation. And that same vibration is also vibrating within us. And if we can contact it, then we will reach the fruit, the true fruits of what yoga is all about. Of course, here in the West, probably less so in other parts of the world and in India, yoga has become somewhat of an Olympic sport and has been unfortunately relegated to just physical exercises and certain purification exercises, like pranayama for health and things like that. But we have missed the boat when it comes to understanding. I'm talking at a cultural level here, not an individual, because there are many people who are practicing yoga in its true purpose and its true intent. But on a cultural level, we need to educate the public. And I know this is one of the reasons why Guruji is having these programs as to the true meaning and true purpose of yoga. So when we study yoga deeply, we see that it is a practical path that leads to enlightenment. And it is also a universal path because it is not about an outer religion that we may carry or wear as a label, but it's about a divine inner connection that we can all have. So the last stages of yoga are really the most important. And those are the last 3 stages of the meditation experience, ending in samadhi, which is oneness. But the steps before that, which is one-pointedness, is a very critical step in the journey. And it's all about how do we still this wily and wild mind of ours. And if we can solve this problem, if we can solve this challenge, then we can certainly reach the goal of all yoga. And so, you know, if you're on the internet these days, and I'm sure everybody is, you're going to see that there's a vast array of information about how to still the mind. And over the years, I have noticed that there are a few enlightened souls out there who are giving out the truth. But the bottom line is, and this is important to understand, that when we focus only on the breath, or when we focus on repeating a mantra internally, these are preliminary steps to help bring to a stage of one-pointedness. But the only thing that will actually still the mind is a power within us, which is called nam or word, also Jyoti Shruti. So the mind, we cannot, and this is important to emphasize, we cannot get beyond the mind with the mind. This is kind of like trying to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps while you're sitting in your boots. So mind is very, very, very powerful. And if we read the sutras correctly, we realize that the whole goal of yoga is to reduce the fluctuations of the mind. But we cannot do that with the mind itself. We can train the mind, we can discipline the mind, we can create better focus, but the preliminary practices are meant to create a stage when we experience the Jyoti Shruti within. And it is only that power, the Jyoti, the Shruti, the Nam, the word, or in the Sufi tradition, the Nur Allah or the Nur-e Muhammadiyah, that will actually be able to still the mind. So the goal of all yoga is get to the light. We are beings of light. We need to enter into that light. And there is a stage higher than seeing the light, and that is becoming the light. And these are the stages that you find outlined in the sutras and in the Vedanta tradition, as well as in the Sant tradition. I am very fortunate to have been initiated by one of the great 20th century saints, Param Sant Kapal Singh Ji, and have been following this tradition under the current living teacher, His Holiness Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj. And the emphasis here, again, and the emphasis in all traditions should be finding a competent teacher, because all of the traditions tell us the same thing again and again. Without a competent teacher who can connect us, who can uplift us, who can inspire us, then reaching that Jyoti Shruti, that Nad, that Udgit, is going to be a very uphill task. So I always say to everyone, continue your quest to find the teacher of teachers. We're not talking about the Barnes and Noble teacher that we find everywhere in the world these days. And everybody is out there with, a new book or a talk. But We're talking about someone who has the competency to raise your soul into the beyond and connect you directly with that power. And this has been the message, really, of all of the great saints, from including Swami Vivekananda, who had that blessing of being initiated by the great Ramakrishna Paramhans. And I recall the incident very well when he was still deliberating, but knew that he needed a teacher as to whether there was even a God. And he came in the presence of his great teacher and he said, "Can you see God?" And Paramhansa Ramakrishna did not give an intellectual reply to that. He said very emphatically, "Yes, my dear boy, I see God even more clearly than I see you." So it is such a guru, it is such a teacher that we need to find and continue to aspire to, who can lift the veils, who can unlock the door, who can release us into that world of love and light that is within us. Now, before I step away from all of you, I want to leave you with a little metaphor in relationship to what is happening these days. You know, there's a story about a woman who was doing an embroidery. It's a very beautiful embroidery that she was making. And if you know anything about embroidery, they're usually in a circle, things like that. And she was creating a beautiful, beautiful design with flowers and trees and birds, and it was just absolutely magnificent. But there was a little child underneath who could not see the front of the actual embroidery. And when her mother told her that she was creating this beautiful design, all she could see was the completely arbitrary, chaotic threads going in all direction that had no design whatsoever. And she kept pressing her mother to say, you know, all I see from the back is chaos and confusion and no even recognizable pattern, plan of any sort. So finally, the mother understood what the problem was with the child and told the child very simply, said, "You are looking at things from your angle of vision. But if you change your angle of vision and see what I see, then you will see the beauty that is unfolding." And she turned around and she gave this beautiful embroidery and showed the front of the embroidery to the child. And the child's eyes opened and saw the magnificent, beautiful design, so intricate to the microscopic detail. And she was flabbergasted. She was overcome with joy. Well, of course, this is an amazing story. It's an analogy of what we're going through right now. Many of us see the world from the level of the child, where it appears confusing, chaotic, without connections. We don't understand the meaning of things that are happening and why things are happening. And that is at the human level. But when we see things from the mystic's point of view, when we see things from God's point of view, we see that there is a plan, even in the midst of this chaos and confusion, that is absolutely perfect, absolutely divine, and is for the highest and most profound interest of every soul in the universe. So this is ultimately what yoga does for us. It brings us in contact with the divine plan, the great will of the beloved. And as we attune to that will, we see everything is perfect, everything is perfectible, and that each and every one of us have an incredible, important contribution to make to this divine plan. My great spiritual master, Thankappan Singh, summarized this. He said, every soul in the universe has been created for a purpose. There is a divine purpose behind the life of every soul that comes into this world. Nobody has been created for nothing. And therefore, we have something to learn from everyone. This is the mystery of humility. So I thank you all for this opportunity to be with each and every one of you, and wish all of you the very best in your journey to be the inspiration and the perfect vehicle that we all can be. So thank you, Guruji, again, once again, and thank all of you for being here today. It's a pleasure to meet you in this virtual world we're living in. Thank you again, Guruji.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew Vedic. It was a beautiful presentation. I enjoy. I have a question, personal question. What made you to be in spiritual path?
What made me was, at a certain point in my youth, going back when I was 17, actually when I was about 14 or 15 years old, I started to have some very strong personal inner experiences of death. And this catapulted me on a journey to find the meaning of life. And and of course, we say the master appears when the chela is ready. So it was the grace of my master who drew me to his feet. And this long journey that we are all on began when I was about 18 years old. I was initiated. So it was really God calling out from within us that we have no control over. It's the result of many lifetimes of trying to figure out what this existence is all about and how we can solve the mystery of life and death. But it's all the grace of my spiritual teachers who actually pulled me to their feet, because how can the blind person find someone with sight? So all credit to the great masters from all traditions and from all paths, who are the true saviors and the true beacons in this world and, by the way, in the next. Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you, appreciate. So,
Guruji, if I may say just a brief word over here, Mr. Andrew, Kripal Singh, you mentioned he was a great guy, founder of the Ruhani Satsang. He wrote the books called Spirituality and Sabshad Yoga and Naam books on that. And all this is called Hukam. See, which is described in the first two paragraphs of the Japji Sahib, which he translated beautifully. Thank you.
So we have one more speaker. Before that, we're going to have a bhajan. I'll like to invite Yogi Prem Das. He's an NGO representative of Well Yoga community to the United Nations. Gabriel, unmute.
I want to ask one question to sir.
After
How did he meet Kirpal Singh, Sant Kirpal Singh? If it's not too much.
Oh, sure. It would be so after taking the holy Naam, as we say in the Sikh scriptures, I was inspired to go to India to meet him when I was 18 years old. And so I went to India, and I had the incredible blessing of spending actually 3.5 months at his holy feet with a very small number of Western disciples, and traveled with him in different parts of India. So it was during those 3.5 months that I came to understand just a tiny fraction of how blessed, how lucky I was to have been, I would say, this poor unworthy one to be brought to the feet of such a great master. We don't deserve anything. We are not worthy of anything. We cannot earn anything to be worthy. We are dust and dust only, but they have such grace and love for all humanity that they raise us up no matter who we are. So this is how I came to, and then I spent another many, many months and many, many years going back to India. I've been to India probably 40 times at the ashram there, and have studied with the subsequent teachers, including His Holiness Rajendra Singh, many, 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 many years since then. So It's all their grace and the grace of God working through all great spiritual masters. Our hearts and our heads bow at their feet. Without them, we are nothing. Thank you for the question.
So we'll have more questions after next speaker. I'd like to invite Gabriel Premdas. Unmute yourself, and you have a floor for your bhajan.
Ganesha Sharanam Sharanam Ganesha 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 Ganesha Sharanam Sharanam Ganesha.
Hallelujah. So we have our next speaker, that is Dr. Vinamra Sharma. He is a faculty member at the Amity University. He has MD and PhD, and he is assistant professor at the Amity. Vinamra Sharmaji, the floor is for you.
So just a minute. So at the outset, I convey my sincere regard to Guruji. All these speakers who are speaking about that, means we can say that the spiritual insights of the yoga. And many things has been discussed, and I think really is that knowledge of the yoga is as like a ocean. We cannot means justify it in a single cup of water. So means so first of all, I on behalf of my university, Amity University, Honorable Founder President Sir Dr. Ashok Chauhan, I convey my sincere regard to all. So thankful, we are thankful to Guruji, who is making us a partner for this wonderful event, that we are able to know that various aspects of the yoga from the various part of the world. So really it's a union of means entire 30 days that World Yoga Festival is a union of various thoughts and visions, and that we can say that at the one program. So just I say about some means brief about the university. That Amity University has established in 2005, and at present we have 11 campuses in India, and that's around 17 campuses abroad, including USA, London, UAE, Mauritius, China, Singapore, Romania, and everywhere we have a campus. That Amity has a vast group of research in the life science and biotechnology, engineering and public health, biology, immunology, environmental technology, agriculture, molecular medicine, STEM cell research. Everything is here in the one campus. So as a part of Amity Institute of Indian System of Medicine. It is established in June 2018 on the day of Environmental Day. So means the gracious at the gracious present of Honorable Ayush Minister Shri Pradesh Nayak, Honorable Minister of Ayush, and the gracious present is also the gracious present of Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Honorable Founder President of the Amity University. So purpose of this institute is to conduct the research in AISM and to propagate validate the wonderful system spread across the world, across the country. And as we know that our tradition is well known and plays an important role in that global healthcare and needs. So, so with this brief comment, I will continue my talk as Guruji has given me a talk on the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Means that we can say that how we can understand that the role, contribution of Maharishi Patanjali in the health promotion and the spirituality and many things we can understand. Of course, we cannot count Patanjali, Maharishi Patanjali contribution in a single frame. We can say that Maharishi Patanjali has contributed his complete knowledge. We can say that in the for the health promotions. Means Maharishi Patanjali also contributed for the personality development of a common man. Maharishi Patanjali has also contributed in the cognitive functions. Patanjali Yoga Sutra is also for that stress management, and we can say that Patanjali Yoga Sutra for the spiritual management, of course. So with there's various things, and with the pray, I start with that we start with the pray to the Maharishi Patanjali. Just we go hand together. You can say that Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Balam Sharirasya Vedikena Yopa Kirotam Pravuram Nina Pantanjalim Pranjalim Tusmi Abahu Purushakaram Sankachakrasidaranam Sahasrasirsam Svetam Pranamami Patanjalim. So we bow hand together before the noblest of the sages, Maharishi Patanjali, who presented yoga for the serenity of the mind, grammar for the clarity of the word, and the medicine for the keeping the body clean. So let's prostrate Patanjali, an incarnation of Adishesha, crowned with 1,000 heads, whose upper body represent the human form of the 4 heads, holding the conch, disc, chakra, and the 2 arm, and with the 3rd and the sword of the knowledge, and the gracing the yoga in the sadhaka with the 4th. So this is means about the Maharishi Patanjali, and why the name of the Patanjali. Patanjali means Pata means that falling or falling, and Anjali means the hand joined for the prayer. So there is also a mythological story behind it, that how that his mother in that in this means the Bhumika is considered as the mother, and that Patanjali is the incarnation of Adishesha in this. So like that, Lord Shiva is considered as the Adi Yogi, the first yogi, and he shared the yoga with the Saptarishis, the 7 sages, who then created the 7 basic schools of yoga initially. Then these schools disseminated into the hundreds of forms of the yoga. So Patanjali is certainly is the father of the Raj Yoga, as per the compiler by the commentary which is written on the Maharishi Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So Patanjali is also believed to be an incarnation of that Adishesha. We can say that well known of the Indian mythology is a 1,000-headed Nag who serves as a coach for Lord Vishnu, and also the guardian of the world treasures. So we can say that the Raj Yoga means it is a means that main which the commentary of the Maharishi Patanjali is written by Swami Vivekananda. In this is mentioned that the science of the mind. Instead of exploring the outer world, Like other science, the Raj Yoga is concerned with exploring the inner world and unleashing the power and knowledge contained within. So it's a science of the mental discipline, include the various method of making the mind the one-pointed. So Patanjali himself defines his method of yoga is the elimination of the mental fluctuations. We call mind as a visible tips of the pure consciousness, which encompasses the conscious, subconscious, unconscious layer of beings. Therefore, the Patanjali, the definition is like that yoga is control to pattern of the consciousness. So Maharishi Patanjali has written his text in that various four different chapters, which are named as the Samadhi path, Sadhan path, Vibhuti path, and the Kaivalya path. So each chapter are focusing that we can say that overall pictures of how one can means it is helpful for one for self-realization. The first chapter is Samadhi path, is chapter of the contemplations. So observance, the examination. And the Sadhan path is chapter of the practice, and Vibhuti path chapter of the wealth, power, and the prosperity. And the Kaivalya path is the chapter of eternal emancipation. So likewise, Maharshi has written that 196 sutras. Sutra means the aphorism or the thread which unite together and make a garland of the knowledge. So really, as that our previous speaker and some of the we had spoken on about the Ashtasiddhis, that the powers which can attain after that practices of the Sanyama. So likewise, one of the audience has asked about, Vikram Singh ji has asked about that how you can understand in the practical way of the yoga. Yes, it is very difficult for a common man. So means I can say that the more one is a penetrate, it reveals the deeper understanding which is beyond the one's individual limitation, akalpita jnana. It helps one to the sharpen the intellectual of the head and the intelligence of the spiritual heart. This makes the practitioner to develop creativity spontaneously. That helps him to grow with clear integrity to express his experiential wisdom and makes him not only to the commune closely within himself but also with the society, community, and the humanity. Yes. So whole Patanjali, we can say that learning of that Patanjali Yoga Sutra is like a father who is teaching to his son. So Patanjali Yoga Sutra is like a darshana. Okay, acts like a parents guiding their children. Parents start by establishing the principle of the education of moral, of what to do and say, what they should not to say and do, as well as the prohibiting which what is not congeal for the healthy birth. These principles are nothing but the principle of yama, niyama, or individual morality and the social behavior, which are the stepping stones of the living principles. That's why that is a part of the practice who father already teaches to his son and mentioning about it. So that's why that when we looked at the treasures of that Patanjali Maharishi Patanjali who has written, he has written the three treasures. Means one is that Chikitsa Shastra, it is nothing but the Ayurveda, and another one is the Yoga Sutra, and third one is that Vyakana Mahavashya. So in view of health, he has written that Ayurveda, and the way of living, he has written the Yoga Sutra, and for perfection of the grammar or the speech, he has written the Vyakana Mahavashya. So means we can say that Yoga Sutra, especially which is written by Maharishi Patanjali, is considered as one of the most condensed texts of the Sanskrit literature on the spiritual and adhyatmic vision, explaining about the universe, explaining about the man, the Purush, and the God in the form of Ishvara. So Sutra gives the impression that the great Shi, in conjunction with the auspicious movement of the deep inspiration and his divine benevolence towards the humanity, formulate the entire art, science, philosophy of yoga in the flow of pearl of the wisdom. So likewise, it is mentioned in the Maharishi Patanjali that everything in the text of the Yoga Sutra. So Yoga Sutra is also known as the Yoga Darshana. So Darshana means that literally we able to know that Darshana is like a philosophy, but Darshana is entirely different. It is a deeper meaning, like it means drashya, which is derived from the word drashya. Drashya means drishyate, meaning to darshan, to see. So meaning to see. So to whom to see? To means to see the Shia. Darsana is the process of seeing. Therefore, Yoga Darshana means a process of seeing through yoga. But it does not mean the seeing with the eyes, nor does it mean the seeing with any other senses in the outside world. It means to see something beyond the senses and beyond the mind. It is the process of seeing with the eye and other senses closed, with the mind under the complete control. Yes, mind control is very much needed. So Yoga Darshana is a method of higher perception. It means to see the invisible or to see with the spiritual insights. So likewise, I have mentioned that Mahasi Patanjali had contributed a lot by his three treasures like Chikitsa Chikitsa Shastra, the form of Ayurveda, and Vyakarana Mahavashya in the form of to perfection the speech of one's speech, and the third one is the Yoga Sutra. So likewise, we can also discuss on about that some inner concepts of that its chapters. So Samadhipada is mentioned the chapter of the contemplation, the observation, and the explanation. So Samadhipada is a treatise on the science of the righteous duty, which upholds, sustain, and support one who is falling or about to fall from the right path. It deals with the sphere of physical, mental, moral, intellectual, and spiritual evolutions. Likewise, the sadhan path is about the practice. So means in this chapter, it is explained that various disciplines or various limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 folded path like Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharan, Dhyana, Samadhi. These are the 8 aspects of yoga are followed jealously with the devotion, one on stability and clarity in the physical, mental, ethical, and the intellectual aspects. Then maintain that equanimity in the all walks of the life. Sadhan Path shows the way to utilize the 8 aspects of yoga in order to refine all sheath of life, forced to become manifest and clear. So likewise, our life force is covered with the 3 gravitational force. These are known as that guna, prakritic guna, means sattva, means the luminosity, raja, vibrancy, and the tamasa, inertia. So yogic practice transforms the sadhak to reach the level of intellectual luminosity, to see things around them as well as in them with a crystal clarity and experience the full of illuminative, exalted state of life. So likewise, in the sadhan path, Patanjali has explained that how one have to practice that the 3 layers in the form of tapa, swadhyaya, and ishwar pradhana. Tapa is the burning zeal, swadhyaya is subject study of the self from the periphery, and the ishwar pradhana means surrender to the God. So God is means about the God. Mahasi Patanjali has mentioned that Ishwar Pradhana means one have to surrender to the God and have to chant by that its name, the Pranava. Pranava is that Omkar, is a 3.5 letter word. And as per the commentary of the Mahasi Patanjali, you can see in the Bhojatika, it is mentioned that this 3.5 letter word, it's transfers that lower consciousness, one transfer to one from the lower consciousness to higher consciousness. When we chant that Om, when we chant, then we feel that the rhythmic, that energy flow from our bottom to top up to the bottom. We feel energy to chant whenever we chant that Pranavachya Om. So like that, so means it is explained in that we surrender to the God. It's a righteous way to achieve that state of samadhi. So likewise, that yama, niyama, do, don'ts, asanas, and the pranayam covers the tapa, and pratyahar and dharana cover the swadhyay, and dhyana and samadhi as part of the Ishwar Pradhana. So like that means it is mentioned that in a Ashtanga Yoga directly encompasses the three great paths, karma, jnana, and the bhakti. So likewise in the chapter Vibhuti Path, Mahasi Patanjali explained not only the acquirement of the supernatural and supernormal power, but also to experience the divine effect of the yoga. The chapter covers two aspects. One aspect is to gain knowledge on the spiritual side through the dharana dhyan samadhi, all three together known as the Sanyama, Trayekam Sanyama, it is mentioned, while the other aspect speaks about the power that acquired. So we can say that a part of this, in this chapter, Mercy Patanjali explained about the Ashtasiddhiya, Anima, Mahima, Garima, Mahima, Prapti, Prakamya, Ishta, and Vashitva. These eight power is about to minute as like an atom, about to grow like at in that big size, about to like a weightlessness, about to be weighty or heavy, powered for obtaining of anything and everything, and the power of the irresistible build the power or to get the anything and anyone merely with wish, and Vashitva subjugating anyone and the anything, and Ishatva means supremacy and over everything. So likewise, these Ashtasiddhiyas can achieved by the practice of the Dharana Dhyan Samadhi or Sanyama. So one have to focus. It starts with the focus on that on the object, either it may be inside of the body and the outside of the body, and can benefit it with that guna of that particular object. But in the later stage, by the continuous practices with abhyas and vairagya, one can attain the supremacy of that of the stage of the samadhi. So, but here, Mahasi Patanjali has mentioned that is like a father. He consciously mentioned that practitioner to ignore all these power as they become the cause for that temptation leading towards the afflictions. So he advised the practitioner to relinquish these power and attachment to the pursue further in their practice. So likewise, in the chapter Kaivalya, the Mahasi has explained about the difference between the Samadhi and the Kaivalya. Kaivalya is, the meaning of Kaivalya is the unmingled, a perfect state of oneself. And Kaivalya means the perfect exemption from the further transmigration. But the Samadhi is a total absorption in the object of meditation. The mind becomes completely still. So likewise, that in that Kaivalya Path, Mahasi has explained that as Janardhan sir, Menon sir has addressed that when this stage is reached on action and reaction do not affect him. At this stage, one is not deviating with that any path of things. Likewise, that's why Mahasi Patanjali explained that the karma of the yogi is the Ashukla and Akrishna. Means for the common man, the karma is like a Shukla, Krishna, Shukla Krishna, Mishrita. But for that yogi Purush, there is neither Shukla and nor the this one, nor Krishna. So likewise, we can say that as per the Mahasi Patanjali point of view, the many commentary has been written on that Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So that's we can say that means more commentary and the translation in the many language. It's make this text the more popular in, throughout the words. So since starting to the Al-Baruni and that old Japanese and the Indonesia's Hindus, here they have written that commentary of the Dharma Patanjali by the name of Dharma Patanjali. Likewise, Yoga Bhashya is the commentary of the Yoga Sutra Patanjali, which is written by the Vyas at around 4th to 5th century AD. Likewise, the Phillips A. Maas, who has written that the treasures of the yoga according to the Patanjali. So likewise, Vachipati Mishra ji, around 900 to 980, he has written the commentary of the Tattva Vaisharida by the name Tattva Vaisharida, and that then in the 11th century, that Bhoj, under the emperorship of the Raja Martanda, he has written the Bhojavritti Tika or commentary. So likewise, many commentary has written time to time. In the 16th century, by the Ramanand Saraswati, he has written Yogamani Prabha by the name of Yogamani Prabha. Likewise, in 1896, Swami Vivekananda has written that Raj Yoga commentary of that on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Likewise, 1920, Charles Johnson, W University, they have written the book of a spiritual man. In 1953, Swami Prabhananda has written the commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Likewise, I.K. Taimani is written the commentary by the name of Science of Yoga in 1961. Likewise, 1963, Swami Haridanand Aranya Baraspati in 1978, 1989, 1993, V.K.S. Envas had written The Light of Yoga Sutra in Patanjali. Likewise, 1996, Barbara Stuller Miller has written the commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the Yoga Sutra, the attribute to Patanjali. In 2003, 2009, 2013, 2020, means we have a the translation and commentaries which is written on the time to time on the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It make that popularity and the acceptance and the wide acceptance globally of that Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So we can say that it's not within that it took a full time as like me as like a simple man, we cannot understand that complete gist of that Patanjali Yoga Sutra. But when we look at chapter wise arrangement and that about the total number of sutras, we can able to understand that how that Mahasi Patanjali has being a physician or being a scientist, being a genuine grammarian, and still he is realized as a yogi. So one can feel at once that each and every word of his is and the expression of knowledge filled with that experiential wisdom and the reflection. That's why Mahasi Patanjali has mentioned that about the chitta. Chitta is that means composed with the three different entities like mana, buddhi, and ahankara, mind, wisdom, and that ego. So all three together they have make the chittas. Still, it is mentioned that the mind one have to control on the fluctuation of mind. One have to control on the vrittis like pramana, vipraya, vikalpa, like that. These vritti one have to control over it, and nidra and smriti one have to control over it. And these vrittis are in under the two folds like klishta and the klishta, the good and the bad one. So then that likewise that the red one is the avidya, smita, raga, dvesh, and abhinivesh. So these are that means we can say that about the vrittis, about the chittas. When we look at the starting of that Yoga Sutra, it is mentioned that Ath Yoga Anusashana means it is started with now being in the auspicious movement. Patanjali has undertaken the reveal the yoga, a successive ageless tradition, suggesting how one can prosper spirituality if he follow the path of yoga through its sadhana. So there are various way to achieve the siddhis and the samadhi. Mahasi Patanjali has addressed that janmajat samadhi means one can have that siddhi with that previous incarnation. Like mantra janma samadhi means one can achieve with by the chanting of the recitation of the mantra. Also one can achieve the aushad janma samadhi by that meditation. Some immunobooster one can immunize or one can be benefited with that. But that ultimate way of that achieve samadhi is the that dhyana jana samadhi means the meditation is the right way to achieve that that state of samadhi. So likewise, this is about I can in brief I can say that this is about the brief about the Mahasi Patanjali, and many things have to learn, many have to discussed by the previous speakers. And with this end, I end with my session, my talk with this thank you, sir. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. You went to the vast area of Patanjali. That is very important in these events. So my point is we need spiritual aspects, we need physical aspects, and we need a mental aspect and the social aspects.
Yes.
That's why we will full-fledged all of these activities. So here I like to invite all the speakers. Please open your videos so I can bring you to the screen. Who else here? Some people left. Yeah, I saw Andrew Vedic. Dr. Andrew, are you there? I'll make it in the gallery view. Is there any more questions? I know just feel like to ask a question. And please unmute yourself. Yeah.
I don't have any questions today.
Okay.
I asked the question to Mr. Andrew with this.
Okay.
That how did he meet Kirpal Singh? He said, I first took Naam and then he went to India. So my question is, how and where he got the Naam?
Andrew Vedic, are you there? I saw his name there. Maybe he's in another meeting or something.
Nice. Okay, then maybe other opportunity. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Gabriel?
Unknown caller.
Okay. Professor Gopinathan Pillai? Anyone from the Amity University?
So I have a, thank you, Mr. Sharma. I don't have much to comment upon because you have exhaustively dealt with the varied dimensions of yoga, grounding on, Patanjali. Therefore, there is, because nothing to supplement that way. But the questions remains, despite all these things, how can we realize this higher consciousness or higher union with the Supreme Light? It is the only question that has been haunting the people, despite all these narratives, textual narratives. This is only, area or only hurdle that we all have on our path towards this, union with the merging with, or in our spiritual pursuit. This is the dilemma that we all are, all the speakers and the, before you also have shared this concern. But everybody is striving in their own way, to, through different means. They all are putting their effort in this direction. And university, do you have any yoga faculty or anything like that in your university, Amity?
He is from the faculty.
Pardon?
He's from the yoga faculty.
Oh, you have a faculty department there, eh? Department.
Yes.
Yeah. So that itself is a great service in this direction. That way only we can promote in this present age, modern world, in our in our capacity, in our limited capacity. That is a great service. That is a great achievement that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are running that 3 courses also at our institute. That one is BSc Honors
Yoga.
in
yoga. Okay.
Yeah, MSc Yoga and the postgraduate diploma in yoga therapy. And at present, our BSc Honors Yoga final year students are also a part of this wonderful event for that entire 1 month with the blessing of the Guruji.
I see. That's great.
Permission to, yes, because it's a final year. That's why they are able to understand that what that means perspective of yoga entire world.
Oh, I see.
So,
okay, that is, we will visit when we come to Delhi. We will definitely
most welcome, sir, most welcome.
come to your. We have our institution, Sakait, Shantigiri.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, we have our ashram hospital there, hospital. Ayurveda Siddha hospital in Sakait, very branch ashram also there.
Okay, sir.
So welcome, and we will visit your institution.
Sure,
okay, thank you.
Sir. Most welcome, most welcome.
Yeah,
that's why, sir, our vision is that at Amity we are passionate about the grooming the leader who are not only through the professional but also good human beings with value and the sanskara. So that we can say that our traditional wisdom is the right way to make that develop the personality to make
definitely. Yes, definitely, it is what we are lacking. It is what we lack. Yeah. It's a great proposition. That
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So we'll have a bhajan. That's from my side. So today everything came with the ultimate supreme soul. All the speakers talking about the supreme soul, nothing else. So we'll go with this Sachidananda. Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda 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 Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda 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 Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda 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 Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda 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 Om Guru Jaya Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda Sachidananda Guru Sachidananda. Thank you everyone. It was a wonderful day. We completed our 7 days. Within 7 days, we had 9 events. There's more to go, 3 more weeks. I want to congratulate all the speakers, all the sponsors, partners, and the students from the Amity University. It will be a new venture for you guys, because when we were practicing or promoting yoga years back, no such things to support us in a global league. We have like a camps or a master, we sit with them and we promote it. We travel from one place to another place. Lot of effort, expenses, time. But now we are going through very fast track because of the Zoom, all the internet. Some way, even though Corona is hurting us, something in new thing for a good purpose happening the one side. So let us see what God is giving us. We'll take it without hesitation. Whatever coming, good things coming, we'll take it. With bad coming, we'll take it. That's a yogic mind. We have to be very neutral. And I know coming days we have a lot of speakers, prominent speakers are coming. And the last day is the 30th. I know 2 people are from the university, the president and the chair will be in the event as a special guest. And the HR Nagendra is one of our long time friend. And he's the number 1 in the government of India as advisor and in charge of all the yoga sections, yoga sports, yoga association, everything he's in charge of it. And he'll be there. And Ambassador Chowdhury from the UN is a person promoted global culture of peace at the UN. He's a very dedicated diplomat. He'll be in our event. And Audrey Katagawa, Esquire, she's the past chair of the Parliament of World Religion. She'll be speaking. And Monica Willard, she's the main representative at the United Nations for the URI, one of the global inter-spiritual, inter-religious group. And she's going to speak. And I know more other people are joining. So we have to make sure, please make a list who is going to attend that day. It should be minimum 3 hours program, and those who are attending, they had to be there for entire time. Because we are limited to only 100 seats in the event, and definitely we'll do live stream. And we should make a benchmark for the world. Last 28 years, I start this event as a small group, and it built up. We did all the work for the global community, not for myself. I don't need any of this stuff for my spiritual part. I already know what to do. But I know a lot of changes should happen in a peaceful manner instead of arguing and fighting. That's not our path. So we'll go with a non-violence mode. We'll bring everyone together. We'll accept as they are. And we educate and share and care. This is the way we promote yoga as a global or universal teaching. So here I like to thank all the speakers today. It was a beautiful discussion group. So we'll continue tomorrow. See you all at 10 a.m. New York time, 7:30 in India time. Thank you, everyone. May God bless you.